Hello, welcome to day 4, and I hope you're well. And before we start today, I just want to say something clearly. If yesterday brought up anything uncomfortable, anything that felt too raw or too close to home, that's completely normal. Once again, that's the work working, and you're doing it anyway. So that is what matters, that you're keeping going. And today we're talking about something that's probably the most misunderstood piece of all of this work with chronic illness. And I need you to come into this without feeling defensive, because the moment you get defensive, your nervous system shuts down, and we need you open today for this particular session. So you've found your hidden story. You've questioned whether it's actually true. You're starting to see the gap between what you believed and what is real. And there may still be something yet holding you back or pulling you back. Something is still keeping you in the pattern, even when you know it's not serving you, even when you desperately want to change. So I want to talk to you today about why that is. Because sometimes the pattern isn't just something you do, it's something you are. And your nervous system will fight very hard to keep you with something familiar, even if that something is really painful. So I want to ask you this question today. If your pain disappeared tomorrow completely, if the IBS was resolved, if the migraine stopped, if you woke up and your body felt good, what would change in your life? And I don't just mean physically, but everything, in everything, what would change? Because here's what I've noticed and what I've lived through myself. That pain is isolating, but it's also, you've heard me say many times, a language. Pain is a way of communicating that something is wrong without having the words to use to describe it. It can also get you out of things. It gets you rest. It gets you attention from people who otherwise don't slow down enough to notice you. It gives you an explanation for why you're not where you thought you'd be by now. It gives you permission to not show up fully. And sometimes, without even realizing it, we become very, very attached to those things. And there's actually a psychology term for this, and it's called secondary gain. And I want to explain it in a way that doesn't make you feel like your pain is made up or that you're doing this on purpose, because you're not. None of this is conscious. It's all happening in your nervous system underneath your awareness. Secondary gain it's the hidden benefit you get from having the symptoms. The advantage that keeps the pattern in place even when the symptom is causing you genuine suffering. So I want to tell you about a client that I worked with years ago, and she had severe shoulder pain. She'd had investigations, she'd been seen by consultants and specialists, and everything came back clear. There was nothing at all physically wrong, but the pain was completely real and debilitating. It was absolutely there. After months of pain management with minimal results, I asked her something, and I asked her what benefits she was getting from the pain. What had changed in her life since the pain began? And at first she struggled to answer the question. And I think that was because she didn't want to admit it, and because it felt probably too vulnerable to admit it. But then she started to tell me that her husband, who'd never done housework before, in their entire marriage was now helping out. Her son, who lived nearby but rarely visited, had become a regular visitor. He took her shopping. He did the DIY work that she couldn't do anymore. Her daughter had found other childcare instead of dropping the children off at her house 3 times a week. So the pain had given her something she'd never had before. Presence from the people she loved, because they were visiting more, be more attentive. Help without having to ask for it. And visibility in their lives. Because when people have got busy lives, we do tend to feel invisible at times. Was she consciously choosing the pain and the symptoms to get those things? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. She was genuinely suffering. But the thing here is, her nervous system had learned something. It learned that pain works. Pain gets results. Pain makes people slow down and show up. And letting go of the pain meant it was a huge risk to her to lose all of those things. So I want to bring this closer to home for those of you in this group. How many of you have noticed that when you're in a flare, people are gentler with you? How many of you have used IBS or migraine as a way to get out of something you didn't want to do? I'm not asking you to write this down or put a comment in this section. I want you to just be aware of how you've done it. And you can own up to it in your own mind, and you can write it down on your own piece of paper. Nobody's going to see it. But this is a really big step that will help you to look at your symptoms and to help move the needle to getting well. So how many of you have felt on some level that getting better means you have to go back to doing everything you were doing before? That you lose the permission to rest, that you lose the reason to say no, or that you lose the identity you've built around being someone who's managing a chronic pain condition. I want to really be clear here. These are not character flaws. They're also not signs that you're not really sick. Okay? Or that you're somehow sabotaging yourself on purpose. No, definitely not. What they are your nervous system protecting you. These are survival mechanisms that made sense at some point and are still running in the background. And I want you to understand that you are not your pain. You are not IBS. You are not migraine patterns. You are not fibro or any other chronic pain condition that has no organic structural reason for being there. These things have been with you for so long that you might not know where you end and the patterns begin. But they are not who you are. And you might have built an identity around being someone who's managing chronic illness. You might have learned to get needs met through the language of pain. And you might have unconsciously used symptoms as a way to communicate things you couldn't say with words. But again, none of that is you. It's something you've been doing, and anything you've been doing can be undone. You can learn a new way. And the tricky part, I want to be honest about this, is that sometimes when we start to get well, we grieve. It's true. We do grieve. We grieve the identity. We grieve the permission to rest. We grieve the attention and care that came through having symptoms. And that's completely valid. And it's something that we need to acknowledge. Because if pain has been your way of getting love, then getting well means learning to get love in a different way. And that can take courage. and it takes practice, and it means asking for things directly instead of having your body ask for you. And it means learning that you deserve care and presence, not because you're suffering, but simply because you're here. You're alive. You're here. And for a lot of us, that's harder than it sounds. So I want to leave that there for you to mull over. And your prompt for today is the one that I asked my client. And I want you to sit with it without judgment. It's in the usual place in the comments. You don't have to share this one. This is private work. But write it down if you can. No one's going to see it, just you. And you can admit these things to yourself if you don't feel you can admit them to anyone else. Really look at the questions, because your nervous system needs to know that it's safe to let go before it will actually let go. Tomorrow, we're going to do something completely different. We're shifting from looking at what's keeping you stuck into looking at what's actually possible on the other side of pain. We're talking about what it feels like to move forward from a place of already being enough, rather than spending your whole life trying to prove that you are enough. And that's going to change everything. So I will see you on day 5. Thank you very much for being here, doing this with me.